followed me for 4 days on the Appalachian Trail. He never spoke. He just smiled. I hiked the Appalachian Trail solo in the spring of 2019. I'd been planning it for over a year. I wasn't doing the full through hike, just a long section in Virginia, about 60 miles over 5 days. The first 2 days were perfect. Clear skies, cool air, the kind of silence you can't find anywhere else. I passed a few other hikers here and there. Quick nods, maybe a short conversation at a shelter. Normal trail stuff. On the afternoon of the second day, I stopped to filter water at a creek crossing, and when I stood up, I noticed someone on the trail behind me. Far back, maybe a quarter mile, just a figure standing on the path. I didn't think anything of it. People hike the trail every day. I kept moving. That evening, I set up camp at a small clearing off the trail, cooked my food, read for a while. Before I turned in, I looked back down the trail out of habit. In the fading light, I could see someone standing about 200 yards back, same direction I'd come from, just standing there, not setting up camp, not moving, just still. I told myself it was a coincidence. Maybe they were deciding where to stop for the night. I zipped up my tent and went to sleep. The next morning they were gone, no sign of anyone. I packed up and started hiking early. Around midday, I stopped for lunch on a rock outcrop with a wide view of the trail behind me. That's when I saw him again. Closer this time, maybe 150 yards back. He was walking slowly, steadily, not stopping. I could make out more detail now. Tall, thin, wearing dark clothing that didn't look like hiking gear. No backpack, no trekking poles, nothing. Just walking. I picked up my pace that afternoon. I covered more miles than I'd planned. By evening, I was at the next shelter. 2 other hikers were already there. I felt safer around people, and I slept inside the shelter that night instead of my tent. I woke up once around 3 in the morning. I don't know why. I looked out into the trees beyond the shelter, and in the moonlight I saw a shape standing between 2 pines about 30 yards out. I couldn't make out features, but the shape was right. Tall, thin, facing the shelter, facing me. I didn't move. I barely breathed. I watched until my eyes burned, and when I blinked he was gone. The next morning I told the other hikers. They said it was probably just another solo hiker keeping to himself. I wanted to believe that. I kept moving. By the 4th day, I was ahead of schedule and considering pushing through to the end of my section a day early. I stopped for a water break around noon and looked up the hillside to my left. He was there, not on the trail this time, off to the side, standing behind a tree about 50 yards up the slope, and he was smiling, wide, unnatural, like someone who had learned what a smile was supposed to look like but didn't understand why people did it. He wasn't hiding. He was letting me see him. I didn't grab my pack. I didn't grab my trekking poles. I left everything and I ran. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs gave out, and I came around a bend and nearly crashed into a group of 4 hikers heading the opposite direction. I was shaking. I could barely speak. I told them what happened, and they believed me. Something about the way I looked must have made it clear I wasn't exaggerating. One of them had a satellite phone, and we contacted the local ranger station. They sent someone out the next day to check the area. They found my gear right where I left it. Nothing was taken, nothing was damaged. But the ranger told me something that I haven't been able to shake. He said I wasn't the first person to report a man matching that description on that stretch of trail. There had been 3 other reports that year alone, all solo hikers, all describing the same thing. Tall, thin, no gear, and always smiling. They never found him. I never went back. On the 3rd night, something circled our camp on the Appalachian Trail. It wasn't animals. Animals don't whisper. There were 3 of us, me, Jerry, and our friend Cal. We were hiking a 40-mile section in West Virginia over 4 days. We'd done trips like this before. We weren't new to the trail, and we weren't the type to scare easily. Jerry even carried a pistol, which he'd done on every hike since he was 18. The first night was quiet, almost too quiet, but I didn't think much of it at the time. We set up camp just off the trail near a ridge, cooked dinner, talked, went to bed. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up to a sound in the distance. It was faint, and at first I thought it was coyotes, a high-pitched yipping sound that echoed through the valley below us. It lasted maybe 30 seconds and then stopped. I fell back asleep. The next morning I mentioned it, and Cal said he heard it too. Jerry slept through it. He said coyotes were common out here and not to worry about it. That second night we camped lower in the valley near a stream. Around 2 in the morning the sounds came back. Closer this time, much closer. The same high-pitched calls, but now I could hear something underneath them. A lower tone, almost guttural, like whatever was making the sound had two voices layered on top of each other. It moved around us, not in a straight line, in a circle, slowly, deliberately, like it was testing how close it could get. I sat up in my tent and didn't move. It lasted about 10 minutes and then faded into the distance. In the morning, Jerry said he heard it that time. He didn't say it was coyotes. He didn't say anything. He just checked his pistol and packed up faster than usual. The third night, we made camp on a flat stretch near a gap in the ridge. We built a fire and stayed up later than normal. Nobody said why, but nobody wanted to go to sleep either. Around midnight, we let the fire die and got into our tents. I laid there awake staring at the ceiling of my tent. Then it started. Not from the distance this time. From just beyond the tree line, 30 yards out, maybe less. The calls were different now. The high-pitched sound was gone. What replaced it was something I will never be able to explain properly. It sounded like whispering. Multiple voices. Fast. Overlapping. In a language or a pattern that made no sense. It wasn't English. It wasn't any language I've ever heard. The tones rose and fell, like chanting but wrong. Broken. Like something trying to mimic speech without understanding it. They were circling us. I could hear the movement through the brush. At least 4 of them, maybe more. Going around and around our camp. I heard Jerry unzip his tent. Then I heard the click of his pistol. He didn't say a word. He just started firing through the walls of the tent. 3 shots. 4. 5. The whispering stopped instantly. Then from somewhere in the dark came a single howl. Long, low, and then the sound of them running, crashing through the brush, moving fast, away from us. We didn't sleep. We sat in Jerry's tent with the pistol between us until the sun came up. In the morning, we checked the area around the camp. The brush was trampled in a perfect circle around our tents. Whatever had been out there had walked the same path over and over. But there were no tracks, no prints. The ground was soft from rain the day before, and there should have been prints. There was nothing. We hiked out that morning, cut the trip 2 days short, and didn't stop until we reached the parking lot. Cal hasn't been back on the trail since. Jerry won't talk about it, and I still don't know what circled our camp that night, but I know they weren't animals. Animals don't whisper. We met a man on the Appalachian Trail who seemed perfectly normal. It took us 3 days to realize something was very wrong with him. My girlfriend and I hiked a section of the Appalachian Trail in Tennessee in the fall of 2021. We were doing about 50 miles over 5 days. On the first afternoon, we crossed paths with a man heading the same direction. He was probably mid-40s, average build, friendly smile, said his name was Glenn. He was hiking solo and asked if we minded him walking with us for a while since we were going the same way. We didn't mind. He seemed nice, normal. He told us he was a teacher from Ohio, on a break between semesters. He talked about the trail, about his dog back home, about how he'd been wanting to do this hike for years. Standard conversation. That night, we all ended up at the same shelter. We shared a fire, and he told stories about past hikes he'd done out west. He was engaging, easy to talk to. I remember thinking it was nice to have company out there. The second day, we hiked together again, but my girlfriend pulled me aside around noon and said something felt off. She couldn't explain it specifically. She said he never asked us any personal questions. Not our names, not where we were from, nothing. Every conversation was him talking, and when we did offer something about ourselves, he'd go quiet for a moment, and then redirect. Like he was avoiding learning anything about us on purpose. I told her she was overthinking it. That night at camp, Glenn offered to cook for all of us. While he was preparing food, I noticed his pack was wrong. Not wrong exactly, but off. It was too light for a multi-day hike. No sleeping pad visible, no water filter, no food bag hanging from a tree. I started watching him more carefully after that. He never ate with us. He'd cook and offer us food, but I never once saw him take a bite himself. He'd say he already ate, or that he wasn't hungry yet. Small things, easy to dismiss on their own. The third day is when I started to feel what my girlfriend had been feeling. We were walking single file on a narrow section, and Glenn was behind us. I glanced back, and he was staring at my girlfriend. Not casually, intensely, the kind of look that doesn't break when you catch it. He saw me see him, and his expression didn't change. He just slowly shifted his gaze to the trees like nothing happened. That afternoon we stopped early, and Glenn sat on a log across from us. He was quiet for a long time. Then out of nowhere he looked at my girlfriend and said, "You have the kind of face people forget." She didn't respond. He smiled and said it like a compliment, but it didn't land like one. It landed like a warning. I told my girlfriend that night that we were leaving in the morning, early, before he woke up. We set an alarm for 4:30, packed everything in the dark as quietly as we could. His tent was about 20 yards from ours. When we crept past it, I looked at the entrance. It was unzipped, open, and empty. His pack was gone, his shoes were gone. He was already awake, or he'd never gone to sleep at all. We didn't stop to think about it. We hiked fast, almost jogging, for 6 straight hours until we reached a road crossing near a small town. We hitched a ride to the nearest ranger station and told them about him. They took a description but said there wasn't much they could do. No crime had been committed. We drove home that same day. My girlfriend didn't talk for most of the ride. A few weeks later, I was reading an article about unsolved cases along the Appalachian Trail. Disappearances, mostly solo hikers, mostly in the southeast. The article mentioned that in several cases, other hikers reported encountering a friendly man on the trail in the days before someone went missing. A man who hiked light, who talked a lot but asked nothing. I don't know if that was Glenn. I don't know what would have happened if we'd stayed another night. But I know his tent was empty before dawn, and I know he said something to my girlfriend that no normal person would say. And I think we left just in time. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and remember there's always more around the corner. Let me know what you want to hear next by leaving a comment. I'd love to see it.